chapter 7. We divided this thing up into 4 pieces, actually. The whole schematic from Solomon 1 through 8. And 1 and 2, we said, we're falling in love, basically. And all the dynamics therein, particularly giving it time to fall in love, giving it time to mature enough to where, like I've said many times, I hate to be redundant, but if the heart doesn't grow fond in the first place, it will never grow fonder in the last place. So it's very important to find out and to love and learn to love one another or cherish one another for just who one another is. Not what one another can do for you or give to you, because the minute your eyes go that way, then it becomes a very selfish love, self-centered and self-absorbing. There's givers and takers. What we want to be is a giver in the relationship, always. The minute you focus on, well, I'm doing everything around here, what's in it for me? You've just stained your relationship in a very bad way. Jesus preached many times, you want to be first in anything, where do you stand? Last. You want to be the best in anything, what should you be? The servant of all. Well, we love that scripture. We go, wow, that's so nice, but we hate to do it. And so we don't. We don't do it in our businesses. We don't do it in our friendships. And we don't even do it with our wives or our spouses, our husbands at home. So if you're going to be a giver, this is the last place, the servant of all. And if you can't do it at home, then by golly, you're probably not going to do it anywhere else. And that's the truth. Now, the benefit of this is it begins to build a fondness of a true heart and a true relationship, and which eventually grows into a love that's genuine, not lip service. Like I said, I've said it many times, it's kind of a cliche, a Channer cliche, but when I married Carol, I told her I loved her and I'll love her forever. And I was genuine, I was honest, and I was, 23. Which she wanted to believe me, and she had every right to believe me, but she had no evidence that I would ever follow through on that promise. Now, 40 years later, after being married to the old ball and chain for 40 years, I did not say that. If I said the same thing, do you believe that I love you? She would probably say, yeah, in a sadistic, horrible kind of way. But no, she wouldn't say that. But 40 years later, she say, yes, I think you will be married to me forever. And why? What's different between me then and me now, other than I've gotten a little older?
You have history.
Yes, we have history. We have time together to where this love not only grew, but has proved itself as real, as genuine, not just something for the moment to get what I want. Which, by the way, I never get.
But now you know that.
We were standing in a place called JCB in California. Carol and I were. It's a very elegant winery. This is a guy that is from France. He owns, oh my Lord, he owns half the Burgundy region in France. Jean Charles is his name. He's probably about my age. And they've come to America and they've planted 3 wineries here, and they've probably assumed 6 or 7 more. I mean, it's just an empire with this guy. And you saw that tasting room with the plush chairs. No, that's his tasting room, and that's just one little part of it. I mean, the tables that he's got the gold in and everything. He's got gold jewelry everywhere for the women, and it's absolutely incredible. And the sweetest little prettiest girl I'd ever seen in my life was one of his tasting ladies, and they're very elegant grace and style, and they're dressed to the nines, in an old kind of Victorian way, and they come out and they wait, and they're very soft-spoken and very polite, and I don't know if they have to be, I would imagine, because this guy's really up there. And Carol was talking to her, and we were talking back and forth, and Carol had mentioned, we just had our first grandchild, because she was talking about her sister just had a baby or something. And somehow it got onto the conversation, really between she and Carol, not me. I was just standing there going, oh God, another grandbaby story. But they got onto this about being married, and she asked the question to Carol, well, how long have you been married? And Carol said, well, we're coming up on 40 years now. And we've dated for 5 years, so we've really been together almost 45 years. And I saw the sadness in her eyes. This young woman, I would put her probably 32, maybe, standing there looking elegant and gorgeous and all dressed and, to the nines. And I looked at this young lady and her eyes just became so very sad. And she said, I wish I could say that to my husband someday. And I Jenner shut off. I asked, well, have you been married? She says, yes, I thought I got the perfect guy, but 3 years later he had other women he was more interested in. And he divorced me. But you could see the hurt and the sadness in her eyes. That's the difference between a giver and a taker. He was a taker. And I don't know, I have no idea why they divorced, but if you looked at this lady and it wasn't just that statement, it was her whole demeanor that afternoon. She was a giver, she was a servant, she did all the work in the place, even when the other girls were standing there doing nothing. I thought, wow. But the sadness in her eyes, the hurt that she carried. You need time. The heart will not grow fonder later on. It's got to grow fond first of all. And, when I look at that, I just think it never happened, obviously, in that relationship. Because I don't know how he could walk away from that, crying out loud. All right.
Liberal California.
Well, I don't know that Carol. She actually was from St. Louis, so. Gateway to the West. That's another story for another day. Jenner does not need to climb that big round Archie thing. Don't do that again. Anyway, the next part, of course, is when the heart grows fond and it becomes true and the desire is right, then it is time to share that love. This is 3 and 4. And do it in all the dignity that it deserves. Not just a yoo-hoo, let's get to that wedding night, which unfortunately too many guys do. You build the dream, you build the fantasy, you build you get the angels singing over here. Don't be a jerk here. Still, givers, takers, remember that. Be the servant. And balance this thing out. Over here it was all the guy, all the guy, all the guy. And over here the girl's saying, when it was the girl, it was, saying, well, I got to get hold of this guy because he's awesome and I don't want to miss it. And he's going, no, 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 let's balance it out. And you got to have not an equal relationship, but a balanced relationship. You've got to be completing of each other, not trying to master, dominate, or manipulate for what you want. It's got to be a fairness, a kindness, a gentleness, where she needs to become the same servant that you are, and that's the attempt here. I'm going to show you this last page a little before I want to, but I'm going to show you anyway. Remember in this first thing when she found that this guy was so awesome, that the first thing she did was say what? Well, I want to marry this guy, build a house, get him and all that. And then later she said it as well, I want to marry this guy and all this stuff. And well, actually that's over here. And he's saying, slow down, hometown. Let's just take our time. Well, when you get down here to 8, you'll find this time it's being said, but it's being said, it's being said honestly. This is 5 and 6, 7 and 8 is where we are today. Now it is time to build the home. Now it is time to establish the family, the parameters, the defining lines that says, this is my kingdom. Not so much the property or the house, but the spouse. This is my husband, this is my wife. Now it is time. And then of course, what will we find? What will we do? And then of course they're talking about, I can't draw a baby carriage, but they're talking about the baby. And how will they recreate all of this? How will they teach her to learn to cherish and to love as they have learned to cherish and love? And that's what we're looking at today. But I'm going to show you this ahead of time. Remember when it was so unbalanced in the first? Now the black lines going up are the man, the red lines coming down are the women, is the girl. But look at it now. Where it was so unbalanced before, what do you see now? Well, you see a real balancing here, don't you? Very balanced. She's responding as he is responding, and there's no, the line up here, these are the friends chanting in, but between the man and the woman, you've gone from a very unbalanced relationship where he was doing all the, and she was just saying, well, let's jump in bed together, to where now look at them, they're very balanced and they're very loving and they're both respectful. They've both become givers or servants in the relationship, and they're concerned truly, as the ancient vows used to say, the prayer was that you become, or you learn to cherish one another as more than yourself. In other words, become a giver or a servant of all. And if you look at this last page, if you map it out verse by verse, this is what's happening. And it's a very balanced, a very loving relationship. Not an equal necessarily. He's king. She was a peasant girl. But in that sense, I mean, not financially equal or anything, but in the relationship, it's a very completing. That's why I say I don't believe in equal rights. I believe in completing rights. Because there's a lot of stuff Carol can do that I can't do. And hopefully there's some things she needs that I can do. And together we do all right, you know. And that puts away the arguments and the, oh, well, I'm doing more than you, or I'm better than you, or I'm more valuable than you. You know, Carol's made more money in her career than I've ever made, or will ever make in my career. And yes, I could go to the bigger churches. I've had plenty of opportunity. In fact, I was in a huge church and came here instead. And the reason was, I hate the huge church. I actually have to kind of work. This one, I go to California for a week. That's not really true. I'm making that up.
Don't think so.
But the big church has its fame and its glory, but also you have to sacrifice something. And you know what that something is in the big church?
Intimacy.
You have to stop being a minister. You have to start being a front man. I can't sit on the floor in the big church and teach the crazy knucklehead ladies on Tuesday morning for 30 years. But I can do that here, you see. And that's the beauty. I can't hug all the people in the big church because people go, oh, you see what he did? But I can here, and nobody bats an eye. They go, that's just Chandler, he's an idiot. Yes, I am. But I'm your idiot. You see.
And we're happy with that.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm not begging the comment. I'm just saying the difference is here I can be a minister. Here I can get to know you, love you, care for you in a genuine way, not just in a catastrophic way. You know, well, I got to go talk to Tom. Why? Because my marriage is falling apart, or my husband's dying of cancer, or my brother's dying of, you know. Well, of course, the minister's going to talk to you then. But what about just on a regular Sunday, you come to church, hey, scrawny girl. Who else calls you scrawny girl? Nobody except me, and y'all bet you wish I'd quit it. Never gonna happen. You're gonna be scrawny for the rest of your life.
You know, in the Bible,
Kugaracha. How many people call you Kugaracha?
I read in the Bible,
Just me.
I read in the Bible where it says that you give holy Christmas. And so I ran into, kind of hugs everybody, Publix the other day, and he came up and gave me a big hug. And so we started talking about that. I said, well, I think our church has holy hugs at our church.
Yeah, look at that Gary back there.
Yeah,
Big old-
Gary, that's who I was talking to.
That big old monkey wraps himself around everybody. It doesn't matter, male or female.
So I just considered holy hugs.
Well, that's what you sacrifice when you go to the big, huge church. Well, that's what you sacrifice when you try and think that one is better than the other or doing more or of more importance. Take that last place. Be that servant of all. Get to know everybody and love everybody equally. And do it, let it start at home. It's amazing that we can be so nice to other people and not to our own husbands or wives. That's incredible. And I see it occasionally? No, all the time. I said, stop beating up on Tim. Let him just sit there. Okay. Let's look at chapter 7. What you're going to do here, we're going to finish this up, is you're going to see them. First of all, they're going to be reunited. They're going to come back together. If you remember, they were separated last time, and they began to test this love as to whether it's good or not. And she went looking for him. She couldn't find him. The guards found her, beat her up, stole her shawl, sent her home. And they said, wow, now how do you feel about this monkey? And of course, she does this beautiful soliloquy about how wonderful and fabulous he is and how her heart longs for him. Then the friend said, and she asked, will you help me find him, blah, blah, blah. So the friends say, yes, we will. And they go and they ask him the same question. How do you feel about her? And of course, he launches into his long soliloquy about how incredible she is. In fact, she's the only person on the planet that confuses him, and which is, kings don't get confused. They have everything planned. They have everything focused, everything sure. But when he's around her, it's just the world's nuts. And they ask, well, why don't you go back? And he says, was there ever any question about that? Of course I'm going to go back, much like a king would go before his troops arraying themselves for battle. And that's where we ended. So we're going to pick it up. We're going to come back together. Look at chapter 7 here. Let me see. My thing is so marked up. It's very difficult to read sometimes. So just bear with me if you lose me here. How beautiful are the feet of your sandals. How beautiful are your feet in sandals, O prince's daughter. The curves of your hips are like jewels. The work of your hand is that of an artist. Your navel is like a big round goblet. The girl must add a few extra pounds on her. Which never lacks the mixed and fine wine. Your belly is like a heap of wheat. What are we talking about here?
Her body.
She's pregnant. Really, she's pregnant. Your belly is like a heap of wheat fenced about with lilies. Your two breasts are like fawns, twins of gazelle. Your neck is like the Tower of Ivory. Remember before when they were asking about her, he went from the head down? Now he's going from the feet back up. You notice this? Mm-hmm. So there's no part of her that he's unimpressed with. Your eyes are like the pools of Heshbon by the gates of Bath Rabbim. Your nose is like the Tower of Lebanon, which faces towards Damascus. Your head crowns you like Carmel, which was a sacred, high, and holy place. The floating locks of your head are like purple threads. Your king is captivated by your tresses. Ooh. This guy's under her spell. How beautiful and how delightful you are. When was the last time you heard that, Kukaraja? Tam, do you tell her she's beautiful and delightful?
Have you?
Say every day, man. Say every day. That's the answer right there. Every day. How beautiful and delightful you are, my love, with all of your charms. Your stature is like a palm tree Your breasts are like its clusters. I want to climb that palm tree, take hold of all its stalks. Oh, may your breasts be like the clusters of the vine, and the fragrance of your breath is like apples, and your mouth like, I lost my place.
The best wine.
Like the best wine, there it is. I mean, that's pretty awesome. This is after they were separated and they're coming back together, and he's saying this to her. What happens in her brain when she hears all this? Well, there's probably no doubt that this guy really loves me. He's assuring her. Now she responds, "It goes down smoothly for my beloved, flowing gently through the lips of those who fall asleep. For I am my beloved's, and his desire is only for me. Come, my beloved, let us go into the country. Let us spend the night in the villages, and let us arise early and go to the vineyards to see whether the vine has budded and if its blossoms have opened." This woman's pregnant. She's on the way to baby. "If its blossoms have opened, and whether the pomegranates have bloomed, there I shall give you my love. The mandrakes have given forth their fragrance, and over our doors are all the choice fruits, both old and new, which I have saved up only for you, my beloved. Oh, that you were like a brother to me, who nursed at my own mother's breast. If I found you outdoors, I would kiss you. No one would despise me either. I would lead you and bring you into the very house of my mother, who used to instruct me, and I would give you the spiced wine to drink and all the juice of my pomegranates. Let his left hand be under my head, and let his right hand embrace me." Of course, then he says, "I want you to swear, O daughters of Jerusalem, do not arouse or awaken my love until she pleases." They're talking about being pregnant, about having a baby, about procreating is what they're talking about. The whole reference to the mandrakes. That used to be believed to be the magical fruit if you found a couple of mandrakes in the field. In fact, in the Bible, if you remember, it was Rachel. Remember Jacob's wife? It was Rachel I want to say it was her sister-in-law.
What is a mandrake?
It was a mythical fruit that grew in the fields, but they were very rare, kind of like a little plum or something. But it was believed in that day and age, in that mindset, that if you found the mandrakes, they were like a one-way ticket to pregnancy. And if you remember, Rachel couldn't have children. She couldn't have children. So her sister-in-law, whatever, found 2 mandrakes in the field. And she said, "I'll give you anything that you want. All of my gold, all of my treasures, everything, if you'll give me that." Because she wanted to give Jacob a child. And she was barren. So anyway, they traded for the mandrakes. And of course, then Joseph came along, who became Jacob's favorite child. Because it was born from Rachel, whom he loved, even though he had 11 other kids, or 10 other kids from his handservants. He never got one from Rachel until the mandrakes. So that's what we're talking about here when he's saying we found the mandrakes. Let's get this on. Now, whether that's true, who knows? I don't even know what a mandrake is. But it's a mythical fruit that they found occasionally, very rarely in a field. And it was believed to, if you ate the mandrake, you would become pregnant immediately. Who knows? That's what they're talking about here. So they're ready. They're getting ready for this. And this is the thing. They're figuring out the time. When is the time right? You know, let's not have a child so that he will have to marry me. Let's have a love that's true so that he will marry me. And then when our love is proved, as it is here in the testing period, and I didn't write that down, but these 2 chapters is the testing of love and relationship. And obviously from the responses of both, it is found to be very true. Then, after the reuniting, which again proves the love true, where do we go from here? Well, it's, let's build our house. And if we have children, let's do it right, prepare it. And now the next part is going to be, well, what are we going to teach her? Well, we're going to teach her everything we've learned. That there's no need to rush or do anything. Just time can be one of your most beautiful, beautiful blessings in a relationship, or one of your worst curses if you ignore it. Or if you try and jump ahead, you're putting that grill together. Guys will understand this. Putting that grill together and you jump from step 5 to step 9 because I don't need to do all that stuff. And then you get almost done and you realize you should have put this little ring thing in there back in step 6 that you avoided. And the whole thing won't work because you jumped over a step and then you got to undo everything and go back. Well, you can do that with a grill. Too much frustration. But you can do that with a grill. You can't always do that with a life, with a relationship. When she was in her wedding night, remember what she said. I have taken off my dress. How can I put it on again? She'd given herself to him that night of the wedding, the honeymoon night. And there's some things in this world that you don't get a mulligan on. You can't redo. So that's what she's talking about. So what she's saying here is, or what she's going to say here is, we got to get this right the first time. And we need to teach her everything that we have learned if she's going to make it in this world as a beautiful young woman. Okay, let's continue on then. Chapter 8. Actually, we're into chapter 8 already, down to verse 5. Who is this coming up from the wilderness, leaning on her beloved? She's a big girl now. She got a baby on the way. Beneath the apple tree I awakened you. There your mother was in labor with you. There she was in labor and gave you birth. Put me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm. For our love is as strong as death. Jealousy is as severe as Sheol. Its flashes are flashes of fire, the very flame of the Lord. This is how she's equating her love, the origin of her love. As serious as death, very flashes, flame of the Lord. Many waters could not quench this love, nor will the rivers overflow it. If a man were to give all the riches of his house for love, that gift would be utterly despised. Not for what they have. You see, now they're really, truly cherishing one another. Then the chorus chimes in. These are the friends. They keep everything moving. We have a little sister, and she has no breasts. We're talking about a baby. What shall we do for our little sister on the day when she is spoken for? If she's a wall, we shall build on her battlements of silver. But if she is a door, we shall barricade her with planks of cedar. You see the illustration there. If she's a wall, we'll adorn that, we'll cherish that. Like the soldiers who used to put their shields on the towers after a great victory, and the sun would hit them and show and reflect to everybody of the might, the power, the strength, and the unfailing certainty of the soldiers. But if she's a door, anybody and everybody, come on in. We will plank her up like an old warehouse. That's what they're talking about here. Now, if we go back to the bride, she says, I was the wall, and my breasts were like the towers, the shining, glimmering towers. Then I became in his eyes as one who finds peace. Solomon had a vineyard at Baal Harmon. He entrusted the vineyard to caretakers, and each one was to bring 1,000 shekels of silver. My very own vineyard is always at my disposal. The 1,000 shekels then are now for you, O Solomon, and 200 are for those who would take care of my fruit. O you who sit in the garden, this is the groom, my companions are listening to your voice. Let me again hear it. And she ends by saying, "Hurry then, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or a young stag upon the mountains of spices." So they're ending with a very beautiful, we're going to be in love forever kind of thing. And but the concern here is, what are we going to teach this little girl? What are we going to teach this little sister? We have a little sister and she has no breast. That's the baby. What are we going to teach this baby? And of course the immediacy is, if she's a tower, then we're going to adorn that tower and make it glad. If she's a door, we're going to take care of that too. We're going to board it up. And they return to, I was a wall, I was a tower, and I almost threw it all away. But it was Solomon who said, "No, don't. Don't. And he was the one that taught me how to be the woman I've become. And that's why I say, if you look at the first one, how unbalanced it is, then you look at the last one, and it's just, wow. It's beautiful. And, this is the first one. These are the friends up here. But the first one was him, and then finally she says, "Yeah, let's get it on." And he says, "No," two strong ones here, "No, let's not." See what I'm saying? But before it was, she had nothing. It was all him. And then you look at the last one, like I showed you before, look at that. And this is verse by verse response. It's just him, her, him, her. Very balanced, very loving, very caring. Her eyes are no longer focused on herself, what I'm going to get out of this, but now it's focused on how can we make this the greatest relationship ever, and even more, pass that on to our children, so that they too can become strong men and women of God in a relationship. In other words, you shall cleave each unto the other, and I shall make you one in my sight. One in my sight, completing one another. Not two equals, one in my sight. A whole creature, lacking nothing. When God said, "I am who I am" to Moses, that identification there is, I am one. I lack nothing. Who shall I say sends me? I am who I am. Tell them I am sends you. He to whom nothing else can be added or detracted. He who is complete. He who is one. In God there is neither male nor female. We're not sure what that means, but He is one. And we can be two if we do it God's way. "And you shall leave your father and mother, and she shall leave her home. They shall seek out and find, and cleave thereunto one another. And they shall become one in my sight, as I intended. And then I shall bless this union, and I bless the work of their hands, and they will be at peace all the days of their lives." This is the promise of God that nobody in this world realizes. Where our divorce rate's at 65, 68%, and we can't figure out why. I can tell you why, because we're not doing it the way God intended for us to do. Our goal isn't even God's goal. Our goal is to become one in His sight, not equal in His sight, to become one. There are things that I cannot do that Carol can. And there are things I can do that she will never do. But together, everything will get done. You see what I'm saying? To become one in His sight, not equal in His sight. Equal rights. That's man-made sin. That's brokenness. That's, man's all sin. All men have sinned. We know that. But when you think like a man, like what's in it for me, and we'll be equal. How noble. I don't want to be equal with you. I want to be vital to you. I want to be indispensable to you. I want to be cherished by you to the extent that I will never have to worry about you leaving me. You see what I'm saying? I want to be one in God's sight with you. How many brides and grooms say that? Yeah, 0. Nobody takes the time. The Song of Songs, the best of the best is what that means. Everybody says, well, God should have told us about this. He did. It's just we never read it, we never study it, we don't give a hoot and a holler about it. Oh, it's Old Testament, that's old, we don't need that anymore. Well, you know, we know about God the Father from the Old Testament. So the minute you say that, you say we don't need God anymore. That's what got us into trouble in the first place. When God said, don't eat that apple, and scrawny girl said, I'm a little hungry. I'm going down to the apple tree. You shut up, kept your mouth shut. The age-old expression. It just goes to show women don't know a line when they hear it from the snake, and man doesn't know when to keep his mouth shut either. Okay, well, folks, that's Song of Solomon. I'm going to preach a little bit about it today. I thought, well, let's do a sermon on this. I know everybody's going to say, but we're going to talk about it a little bit anyway. Not from an Old Testament perspective, from a New Testament perspective. Okay, goodbye.